What are some things you can do to give your hunting property an advantage over your neighbors? How can you begin to get and hold bigger bucks in front of your trail cameras? We'll find out the answers to those questions and more. The Rakk Factor podcast starts now. Welcome to the Rakk Factor podcast, where we discuss the factors that lead to bigger bucks and a healthier deer herd. The Rakk Factor podcast is presented by Rakk Fuel Premium Deer Nutrition. From premium deer mineral to deer feed, premium food plot seed to deer attractant, Rakk Fuel products maximize the health and potential of your deer herd year-round. Visit rackfuel.com and fuel your herd. All right, here we go. The maiden voyage of the Rakk Factor podcast. My guest today and co-host in future episodes of the show is the one and only Tom Lester, co-owner and founder of Rakk Fuel. What's up, Tom?
How's it going, Steve?
Man, it's going. I'm excited to be doing this with you. We got a lot of great content coming up, a lot of great guests coming up, but I got to ask you, for those that don't know, explain, what is Rakk Fuel?
Okay, Steve. Rakk Fuel, it's a 3-part program that's designed to improve the health of your deer herd, but especially to grow bigger bucks. Part 1 is our premium deer feed. Part 2 is our premium deer mineral. And part 3 is our premium food plot blends. Now, we understand that not everyone's going to use, all 3 parts. So each one is designed to work on its own to improve the health of your deer herd. But what we found is when we use all 3 together, we're getting the greatest results, and really we're maximizing the buck's potential.
That's awesome. So you've got this line of products. Where did the idea to market these products come from?
So I've been making mineral and attractants for whitetails it's about 20 years now. Like everyone else, I started buying stuff off the shelf. I just wasn't happy with the results that we were getting on the farms that I hunted. So I started doing a lot of research and looking at it and trying to figure out a way to make something that I thought would be better, for the herd that the deer we were hunting. And I wanted to have, more minerals and vitamins in, but my main focus was, low salt and calcium and phosphorus. So the salt, I wanted it to be under 20%, and I wanted a 2-to-1 ratio of calcium to phosphorus. That was the main goal of it. So when I made the first batch, put it out, put the camera on it, and went back a few weeks later to check, was pretty excited to see, how it was working. And then I got there and it didn't look like they hardly ate it. And I checked the cameras and they didn't. I added, liquid and dried molasses to it to try to use it as the attractant to bring the deer in, but they just didn't really like that low salt product. So I knew I had to try to figure something else to get them to eat it. So there was a lot of trial and error. And after a while I came up with an idea and made an attractant that I added to it. And the deer absolutely hammered it. I couldn't believe actually how often they were coming back and eating it. So, it was that attractant that really changed the entire deal. And then the first year we saw a difference in kind of body size, but after, the second and the third year, we really noticed a big difference in the size of the racks, and the characteristics, the bucks that we were hunting. For years, most of what we saw was, pretty big 8-pointers, wide, tall tines, but short brows, not a lot of 10-pointers, and hardly ever any junk. And, after like that third year, we've seen more 10-pointers than 8s, taller brows. Then, over the years, we've seen a lot of different things, a lot of split brows, a lot of split 2s, even a number of double main beams. So we saw the big difference. And then friends of ours saw, the change. So they asked about it. So I was selling to just, a few buddies around the Midwest, and we were hearing the same results from them. They were having the same jump and, in their bucks. So my dad and I, we decided, maybe we can help other hunters as well. And that's when Monster X was created. And that was a company that, my dad and I started to sell mineral and attractants for whitetails. And we sold a lot of product, and we heard a lot of really great things from customers all over. We sold, from North Dakota down to Texas and every state, east of that. And we were getting pictures sent in. We sold a lot of products. Things looked really well, but there was issues for sure. We didn't have any type of a business background. And we made some, bad mistakes, followed the wrong advice. And it just, after 5 years, it just wasn't going anywhere. And then, my dad passed away unexpectedly. And really, after that, Monster X kind of died off too. So I still liked chasing big bucks, and running cameras. So I was still making mineral and the attractants and putting it out for on places I hunted, and a few friends were still using it as well. It was kind of back to the beginning, and when I was doing that, I figured I can improve it, I think, a little bit. So I kept looking into some more research and tweaking both the mineral and the attractant, and came up with what I think I kind of perfected it. A number of people over the years since Monster X, died off, asked about starting up, and I kept saying no. I had a pretty big company ask me to make a liquid mineral for them, and then another company wanted to use our attractant in their products, and I didn't want to give it away to anyone, so I just I told them no. And then, one of my good friends, he must have asked, I don't know how many times, eight or nine times he asked about starting it up again. And I just kept telling him no. And then finally, one day he called and he said, okay, we're going to start back up. We're just going to do it. He goes, just tell me what you need. So we had a long conversation on what he could do and how I wanted to do it if we did. And the good part and what made me even consider it this time was the business background that I did not have. I was starting a business and running it successfully. Him and his father have a number of businesses, and they had the entire infrastructure. They had the warehousing, the people that could pack and ship, accountants, and people to run the books, IT guys, even a web guy that could build the website for us. So all of those things. So I called my wife and talked to her about it. I actually called and talked to you, Steve, and because it was like, this sounds too good to be true, trying to hear what someone else's perspective and opinion. And then really what cemented it is I called, our good friend Mike Jacklin. Him and his family run a successful business. It's been in their family for over 100 years. So I figured I'm going to run it past him and see what he thinks. And, at the end of the conversation, not only did Mike say, you need to do it, he was like, I'm going to invest in it. I want to be a part of it, because he'd been using our stuff since the beginning. Because not only do they have their business in Wisconsin, they also own and run an outfitting business where I hunt in Iowa. So he knew how well our products worked, and then he knew how that whole business structure was going to be set up. So that's how this whole thing started. But I didn't want to try to start Monster X over everything. It had to be new, new name, new logo, new website, the coloring, of that we used for the packaging, you know, everything different, because it was a new product, and it was going to be a new system. It wasn't going to be just mineral and attractants. The minerals part of it, but not even the main part. It had to be the mineral and feed and food plot, seed, if we were going to do it. So that's how this whole thing started.
It's quite a journey for sure. Um,
Yeah.
Some listeners out there, they may have never heard of, supplemental feeding or deer nutrition, even though it's in the name, Rakk Fuel Premium Deer Nutrition. What are the benefits of providing additional nutrition to your deer herd, and why should that be on people's radar?
For me, supplemental feeding is a huge part of the nutrition program, because not everyone has the land to grow food plots, or even if they have the land, it might not be. They might not have access, or it might be all woods, and they just might not have the ability to put food plots in. I know there's some farms I hunt, I can't put food plots in, so we rely on mineral and the feed. But even if you can have food plots, there's times where we're trying to give them what they need all year long, and this way it's easy. You can be able to get it out and put it in an area, and get them the protein, the fat, the energy that they need to survive through the winter. In the spring, before everything starts to green up, you're giving them a boost, help them replenish anything that they might have lost during the winter. And in the summertime, there's when there's a drought and food plots sometimes aren't doing great, it's a great way not only to give them the food and, like I said, the protein and energy and fat that they need, but it's a great way to inventory the deer on your property.
A lot of guys use it just for that reason, is to just, to be able to get maybe, target bucks in front of their cameras, just to see if they're still sticking around, or even it even brings in different bucks from different properties as well.
For me, as important as supplemental feeding is, what you feed them is even more important. When you flip over the back of the bag, if the first ingredient isn't grain products, then I would just put that bag right back down, because a lot of companies, just like on the mineral, where they're using the salt as their attractant, and salt is cheap. Those processed grain byproducts, they're cheap as well, and a lot of companies are using those to keep their costs down, but bringing the deer in. Now, really, the biggest problem with that is they're more fibrous, and deer have a hard time processing high fibrous products. So we want a clean product. It's whole corn. We've got roasted soybeans. We have protein pellets. We have roasted corn in there as well. We black oil sunflower seeds, and we fortify our feed with our premium deer mineral. So we put 100 pounds of mineral in every ton of feed. But really, the key to what sets our feed apart from others is we put 2 gallons of our attractant in every ton of feed, whether it's the apple flavored or the peanut butter. And that strong smell brings deer in. And that really is the key to a lot of our products is that attractant. You want something that's like 16 to 18% would be, a good basis to go by when you're looking on protein for feed. And then you want, if at least 6% fat And then I wouldn't, use anything more than like a 6% fiber content. And the way that we have our setup, trying to make it as good as we can for the deer, we're right at the maximum of what we believe that the deer need is 18% on the protein. We're at 8% on the fat, and we're 4% on the fiber. So we want not only for the to pull the deer in, but we wanted them to be able to consume it, digest it, process it, and really get all the benefits that they can from our feed.
So the key is no fillers. A lot of competitors' products have fillers, which we're not going to name names, but as you said, you're trying to keep your products as clean as possible and to lower those thresholds, not going above, and adding things that they don't necessarily need and can't necessarily process. You touched on the point of that smell, that aroma, that, man, it pulls deer in, doesn't it? You can honestly say that when you put your product out, it can be a game changer. When we go to shows, we will actually have the product at the booth, and we get a lot of reaction from people walking by, don't we?
Right. So we keep it in a basically a plastic Ziploc container with a screw-on lid. So that way they can see the product and see that, how clean it is. But the ultimate goal is we want them to open that lid and not just look at it, but smell it. And it really, it's interesting to watch the reaction from everyone, because when they're thinking of anything with deer, a lot of times it's almost, I think in their head that it's going to be a bad smell. And when they smell it, that sweet smell, whether it's the cherry vanilla from our mineral or the apple or the peanut butter from our feed, we get a lot of, oh, I would eat that. They really, it smells that good. And it smells from a long way away, and you can smell it from a pretty good distance, as the people can. So the deer can smell it, from a long way. That's our goal, is not just to bring all the deer on our property into a spot so we know what we have, but we want to pull deer off of neighbors' properties as well.
Well, Tom, obviously whitetails are a big part of your life, and another activity that you love to do is shed hunt. You love hitting the fields and the woods in the off season, looking for shed antlers. So, what's the story behind the Rakk Fuel logo? I noticed there's a shed antler there, and how does that fit into what you're doing, trying to move forward here?
Yeah. So that the shed is actually from a buck that we chased for years. It was the first really big buck that I got on camera. We named it Split Brow. Not very unique but it was the first double split brow buck that we got on camera after using the mineral. And, it was a really good deer, but it looked young. It looked like he was 3.5 and had a lot of potential. I've known Tom Indebro for years. So I sent a picture over to Tom because he knows more about whitetails than almost anyone. So I sent it over, and I wanted to just hear kind of his opinion. And I called him up, and, he said, no matter what, he goes, try to make sure that deer doesn't get shot this year. If he can get it another year or two, he's going to be just a giant. So that was the plan. And that was the first, really good buck that we put on basically, a no shoot list and was just off limits. And we figured that buck was somewhere 150, 151, 152, 100, it was a good deer. And, I remember during bow season that year, I had him come right in. He was about 20 yards, and I just sat on my hands. And that's the first, buck like that I had passed. And that wasn't easy because, 150-inch deer is a really good deer. And it would have been, one of my better ones. But we knew it was going to, I had a chance to really blow up into something really big. And he was really good at 4. And for sure we would have shot him. At 5, he disappeared. And I think he was across a river on another piece of property. And at 6, he showed back up, and he was blind in his one eye, and his left eye was blind, and his right side antler changed. It wasn't mostly typical with just some kicker points sticking out. It had, it's still pretty typical, but it had some extra beams and that, and so we chased that deer pretty hard. No matter what stand I picked, he was just on a different area, and he didn't like to be by other deer, especially after he was blind in the one eye, so he wasn't chasing during the rut. He just had his routine. He had a big circle that he went, and he just kind of kept to himself. So we never got a chance to catch up with them that year. And we were actually in Louisville, Kentucky at a ATA show. And one of my friends, Tony Folsey, was checks cameras with me every once in a while. And he called and he's like, hey, he goes, do you mind? He goes, I kind of want to go and check a few cameras. And I was, I told him, that's fine, go ahead. But there was a couple in particular. I'm like, I want you to check these few cameras because we haven't seen split brow, in a few weeks. I go just to see if he's on them. So we finished up that day. We packed up and we just started to leave, and we were making plans. We were going to drive a few hours that night and then stay somewhere and then come home in the morning. And Tony called and he's like, I think it was December 30th, the picture, if I remember right. But he walked past the stand that we called the Shortcut with both sides at 10 o'clock in the morning. And he was heading over to another camera, that we call the Cedar. And then he came back at 1 o'clock that afternoon, and his right side, he dropped. So I knew it was in between there. They're not going to travel that time of year very far. I think he was just heading over to bed, and I'm thinking it's within 100-yard area where that shed is. So we decided we're going to drive right through the night. We weren't stopping. We're going to drive, and then go out and look for it. Now, a few of my buddies had called while we were driving. They knew what we were going to do. So there was a couple of us that met up, and we walked back to go look for it. And it might have been the easiest, even though it's a big shed. It might have been the easiest find ever because we didn't even mess around and look at anything until we got to the Cedar, and then we kind of split up. And when we went out there, I've shed hunted a number of buddies' properties, and there's big ones that they know that we're looking for. Whoever's lease it is or owns the ground kind of keeps it. And I told them, I'm like, because I've let guys keep other sheds, but I said that this one was going to be mine because I knew I could find it myself. I knew basically where it was, and everyone agreed. So I kind of went behind the Cedar, and I don't think it was 3 minutes. And I could hear, my buddy, Bobby Bergeson, he's like, I got it. And there was a big cedar tree in between the cedar that we have the trail camera on and the Shortcut camera. And he walked right by that camera, laid under that cedar tree, and just there it laid, perfect. So it was pretty exciting. And it scored exactly 98 inches.
Wow.
It's a heck of a shed. And that's when we were coming up with ideas for the logo. We sent pictures, you took care of a lot of that stuff. So I'll let you go into the details, but I knew we wanted, if we could have it in the logo, I thought it would be pretty neat.
Yeah, that's definitely a landmark deer for your, not only your property, but for the types of things you've been doing on your property over the years. He was obviously a benefactor of your mineral product and the things that you were doing. So we sent off some pictures to John at Apex Advertising. There's pictures of the deer. We sent the picture of you holding that shed, and he took that shed and he incorporated that into the Rakk Fuel logo, which we agree it's a fantastic logo. He did a great job with it, and I think it really captures, the essence of your brand and what you're trying to do with Rakk Fuel. So I know you have the shed there. And people that know the logo will probably recognize it if you want to hold that up and show people just how big that thing is.
He just turned it to make it look a little bit like an A. So this is.
So for those just listening, that right side is kind of a mainframe 6-point, right? He was
yes.
He was a 12-point 6x6 with some stuff on both sides, but
well, he was, the 6-point, with a split, and then actually it was scored as 3 main beams, and then the other side was a big 10-point side with a bunch of kickers. The other side, when he went by on the cameras, was more impressive because it didn't have to grow that double main beam, or the third beam, that was coming off of it. The tine length was unbelievable. I mean, just a giant deer. So I mean, the ones I was 98, we always, from all the pictures, we thought he was around 209 to 210, and he just disappeared. And that this shed is the last anyone knows of it. We looked like crazy. We brought buddies in, brought dogs in, trying to find the other side. It just never found it. And never got another picture. It was just, that was it, just disappeared. So, and a deer like that, if someone shoots it, you would hear about it. So no idea.
Obviously, we wish we could have continued the story with him, but to have his shed is pretty special. So let's talk specifically now, Tom, about your deer mineral. That's kind of that was your initial product that came out. What's the secret sauce that you've discovered with the mineral, and what does it actually do?
There's no secret recipe really on the mineral. It's just, I'm putting more mineral and vitamins and less salt. Really, like I said, the key and the basis to our, the success of our mineral and our feed is the attractant. I've heard it called the secret sauce. I've heard Tom's love juice. I've heard a number of different things with the attractant. It's an oil-based product that is, it's got a strong smell. There's no doubt it's a strong smell, but it's a sweet smell. And there's a number of different, flavors that we have. And the good part about this, because it's not watered down. When we pour this oil-based product over our mineral or over our feed, it coats everything. So you have that smell all through the entire product. It's not just, on one part of it. It kind of coats everything. And that smell, it first of all, they smell it, and I'm sure they're curious. So they go in and then they try it. And, that flavor, they must really like the taste of it because they keep coming back. So that really is the key to why that deer will eat our stuff over, the high salt products and over some of the the feed with more of the processed grain byproducts in there. So it's not, an easy thing to make. It's not a cheap thing to make either, so part of with our products is we're never going to be cheaper than everyone else. We try to keep it, as competitive as we can, but because we're putting in premium products, we're getting the best ingredients that we can. We're putting in, an expensive attractant, and, we could even get away with, I could do 1 gallon per ton, but, I want to make sure that those deer are drawn as far as we can. So, we put the extra gallon in. We go, above and beyond, I believe, what we need to make sure that, our product is better than everyone else. So there's, some extra cost to that, but, we want the hunters that are using our stuff to be as successful as we are with it. We don't make a special version for the stuff that we use. The same thing that we're selling to the customers, we use ourselves. So, and I'm not putting anything else, out unless I think it's the best stuff that we can. But the key really is that oil-based attractant. And like we touched on earlier, when people smell it, they think, boy, I like that smell. I would even eat that. So yeah, our big thing is drawing deer in, to see what you have, but also, we've had guys, that weren't getting pictures and used it to draw deer in.
Yeah, there's a story that we've heard not too long ago of a guy that used the product and he saw results pretty quickly, actually. Why don't you share that one?
Right. So last summer, there's a guy that had a small piece of property. And, he said he'd only seen like 2 bucks on camera up to that point. And a lot of the tracks around them were larger tracks with a lot of food plots. And he just wasn't getting deer going through there. And he said he sees a lot of deer during the rut. They go through his property more, but he wanted to see what was there. And he, asked me, what he could do. And I suggested, that he put some of the feed out. And so he got some on a Friday and put it out Saturday morning. And then he called me on Monday and he said that once he put it out Saturday morning, from the time he put it out till he walked back to his truck, he said it was less than a half an hour. And he was already getting pictures from his cell phone, from his cell camera of 2 bucks. And then by Monday morning, I'd already seen 11 different bucks on that property, drawn in from that the attractant on that feed. So crazy results, in a short amount of time. It's and that's not the only time that we hear things like this. This was last summer, but just recently, a couple weeks ago, I was talking to our good friend Pat Howard, and I was telling him, I said, yeah, I just got an email earlier that day. It was someone that saw some of the pictures on social media that we were posting, and they decided they wanted to try our stuff, and they bought 1 bottle of the attractant, 1 bag of the mineral, and 1 bag of the feed. And in the email it said that they were using a competitor's stuff for a while and was getting, some pictures, but they decided they wanted to try ours. But they were reluctant on putting it in their best spot. And then, it said, they decided, well, I'm going to try it because that's why I got it. So they put it out in their best spot and had pictures come in right away. And they were, surprised at how quickly it worked. And then they, again, saw deer that they hadn't seen before, and at the end, put, I give all your products a 10 out of 10. And, right away, Pat said, he's like, well, that's not the first time you heard that. And I said, no. I said, we've heard that quite a bit. And actually, we love that stuff because that's why we did it. We decided to sell this, to help other hunters and get that success. So, when you see that stuff, it's pretty rewarding, to know that you're helping them. And also, we know what it does and how it reacts, but to hear other people's reaction is pretty neat. But yeah, Pat was like, yeah, I've heard, I know you've heard, a lot of that stuff. But I did tell him, and I don't even know if you've heard this story before. The craziest one that we've ever had. This is years ago. We were at Deerfest back when it was in Oshkosh still, and I had a customer come in, and he was at the booth, and we were talking, and he was hunting in a place where you couldn't use bait, and he didn't want to risk it. So, he was looking for a way to basically just to inventory and see what deer were on there, because he was hunting, in the swamps. And he said he would put the camera out and he would get a half a rack or a blurred picture or a picture of an ass going by. He's like, I couldn't get them to stop. And I told him, I said, well, I sold him a bottle of our Attractant. And I told him, I said, put your camera facing at on the trail, but where there's some cattails. And I said, just spray the stuff right on the cattails, and that'll absorb that scent. I said, then you're not baiting. You're it's just an attractant. But when they come by, they're going to smell that and get drawn in, and they're going to stop, and you're going to get your pictures. And anyone that tries our stuff or kind of on the fence and just buys a bag or two to try, I always have my business cards sitting on the booth for people, in case they have questions or want to order more stuff, or more times it's someone's got a question on how they could use something or a recommendation. So, but on anyone that buys something, and like, hey, I'll give it a try. I always give them the card because I know they're going to be calling to order more. And this guy called 3 weeks later, and he's like, you're not going to believe it. He's like, I sprayed it on the cattails, like you said. And he's like, I got all these pictures, way more than I've ever gotten. He goes, but the crazy part, he sprayed it on the cattails, and the deer actually ate the cattails. So you put it on something, they're going to eat it.
Nothing like having a huge scent wick out there with a cattail. And those stories
right.
Those stories never get old.
Right.
Let's just switch gears briefly and talk about strategy, and how guys and gals potentially use your products. So let's address the private land hunter, the guy that's got 40 acres, 80 acres, 20 acres even. What do you recommend that person do, that hunter do, to kind of incorporate the Rakk Fuel program onto their private ground?
Ideally, like we talked about earlier, you can use, that 3-step program where you're using the mineral and the feed and the food plots to get the optimal results. But, for mineral, I kind of like it by water if you can. I like to put it kind of on the field edge a lot of times. I try to stay out of the woods, as much as I can. So I do a lot of stuff kind of on the fringe and on field edges is where most of my mineral sites are. And I like to put the feed kind of in the same areas, just off to the side. If you're, on private land and you've got a feeder, that's, perfect. Just fill the feeder up and then you just, replenish it when you need to. But if you're not going to use a feeder, if you're just going to put it right on the ground. And I do that quite a bit. I don't dump into a pile. I like to fling it and spread it out. I don't like it piled up. The main reason, if there's multiple deer coming in, I don't need them fighting over it and stressing them out. So I try to, like I said, I try to fling it, and spread it over a pretty good size area. But yeah, that's kind of my main deal on private.
And then for the public land hunter, the guy that doesn't have his own property, what would you recommend they do?
So on the public land guys, what I would do, if you're trying to kind of hide it from anyone else that you're, hunting basically in competition with, you don't want to give anyone else an edge, on the work that you're doing. Instead of pouring the mineral on the ground where all of a sudden someone could see a big hole started, to get dug up and where they're eating the dirt and the mineral, I would pour it on a stump. Now there might be someone that might notice, that all of a sudden the stump's getting kind of chewed up and eaten, but you'd almost have to be looking for that. So I kind of would hide it basically that way and pour it on a stump. On the feed, what I would do is if you could find like a meadow or anywhere where there's kind of tall grass and weeds or anything like that, I'd kind of go out in the middle and same thing as pouring on the ground. If it was private, I would fling it out. I would not put it in a pile. I would fling it out in the area. And, we do that on some stuff in tall grass areas and switchgrass on some private property. And if we want to put a camera on it, we'll take basically like a little hand weed whip, manual one and knock a bunch of the tall grass down in a circle, put a camera, fling the feed in there. You could do the same thing if you wanted to. And I mean, someone might stumble upon it, but if you want to, put a camera, that's how I would do it on public. The other thing that you could do in both the public and private, because there's a lot of places that you can put feed out during the off season, but not during hunting season. So you could put the feed out, when you can, and then spray the attractant during hunting season because it has the same smell. So, you can give them the impression that food is there by spraying that attractant on a scent wick or in your shooting lanes on any type of on the tall grasses in those same spots.
All right, Tom, you've given us some really good strategies, some good advice on how to use Rakk Fuel products. But now it's time to have a little fun. We're gonna move to our lightning round questions, and these are questions we ask real quick. Give us your first response, and hopefully we'll have a little fun with this. So, question number 1: if you could only hunt one day each year, what day would that be?
Okay, I have 2 answers.
2 answers.
So it can't be as
only
easy.
One day.
I have 2 answers.
Let me specify. Only one day. No, that's fine.
No, I understand what you're saying.
What are your
I understand
days?
what you're saying. So this year, okay, I drew an Iowa muzzleloader tag. So my day is December 29th. I go down the day after Christmas and I hunt a number of days, and I've shot a couple bucks on December 29th. I'm hoping this year it's December 26th because I that is my birthday, and I've been wanting to shoot a birthday buck for a number of years, and that I haven't quite done that. But if I had a day to choose this year, I would say December 29th, late season over food plot in Iowa. But on the years that I don't have an Iowa tag, unfortunately, I like November 7th.
Definitely a good day to be in the tree stand. All right. What's your favorite tree stand snack?
I like a lot of stuff, but if I only had to pick, one, I like Uncrustables. I would pick an Uncrustable over a lot of things. Yeah.
Any particular flavor?
Really, only two. I only like the grape with jelly with peanut butter, or the hazelnut.
Okay.
I'm not eating the strawberry one. I don't know why, but nope, that's not. Just those two.
Got it. All right. Next question: gun or bow?
Both. See, I'm difficult. I'm difficult. I know most guys are gonna say bow, and I love to bow hunt, and I bow hunt more than I, other than when I muzzleloader hunt in Iowa, then I probably have more days gun hunting than bow hunting. But I'm trying to kill most of the time a specific deer, and whatever the season is, I've tried that in the past where I was like, oh, I'm just going to bow hunt this year. And during gun, I had a big one that I was after, just out of bow range during gun season. And I just thought to myself that this is not, I don't care, if you're just trying to hunt a specific deer, it's not an easy thing to do. And I'm not going to, make my chances harder. If I can do it legally, I'm going to use whatever weapon. I use them all. Yeah.
You're a Minnesota guy. You hunt a number of states. Which one's your favorite?
Iowa. It's not even close. Iowa. Yeah. Yeah. I've hunted in a number of areas. I've seen some really good ones in Kansas, but boy, the luck I've had there is horrible. I'll stick to Iowa.
All right, last question. What do you think is the number one factor for killing a mature whitetail?
I mean, the obvious answer is nutrition, but that's not it for me. I mean, really, it's age. Age is the number one factor. I don't care how much nutrition you give the deer. If you don't let them get to a certain age class, they're just never going to reach their potential. Now, not every old buck is going to be, a booner. I mean, they're not all going to be a giants. They have their limitations. But if you don't let them get to at least 4, but I mean, really 5 or 6 is where they're really going to be as big as they can. So, and there's great deer, at 3 years old, like Split Brow was a heck of a buck, 150, but he made it to 6 and he was like almost 210. I mean, that's a huge difference. So no, to me, it's age.
All right. Great answers. So there are other Rakk Fuel products available. Where can listeners go to find out more about Rakk Fuel Premium Deer Nutrition?
You kind of touched on that a little bit. We do have a few other products. We didn't talk too much about the food plot blends yet. So we have 7 blends right now, and we're working on some more. Spent a lot of time talking to agronomists and land managers, guys that we know that kill really big bucks, and trying to come up with the perfect blend, where you're given a number of different seeds in each blend that mature at different points to try to keep the deer coming back. And what we've created is whether it's early season or late season, we've got products that can help, provide the nutrition that those deer need all year long. And then also we've got a screening product called the Wall that we also have, basically for borders and hide blinds and all those things. So we spent a lot of time on that. We won't talk too much because we've got another episode coming up where we're going to really dive into all of our blends and what they can do and how they benefit everyone. I believe it's probably going to be our next episode. So yeah, but if everyone's looking for our stuff, you can go right to the website, www.rackfuel.com. For people that really like to shop Amazon, you can go and buy all of our products there. But if you're just looking for pictures, and information, we've got a Rakk Fuel Facebook page, Twitter, and Instagram. There's more pictures on Facebook than the others, but there's a lot of pictures. Not just trail camera pictures of big bucks, but also hunters that were successful last year using our product that took pictures with our bag or our jug of food plot blends. And it's pretty impressive. I mean, there's a lot of really big deer, and there's something that I kind of missed on a little bit earlier when we were talking on the feed. A lot of people, the big thing you hear is when we put out feed, especially the big bucks, we're only getting pictures at night. So with our attractant, I believe that those deer, when they smell it, they know they've got to go in there and get some of it before all the other deer do. So if you go to our social media page, you go to Facebook and you look at all the pictures, we have a lot of really big, giant bucks on camera during daytime coming in to hit our feed.
Yeah, it's impressive the caliber of bucks hunters are seeing and sharing pictures of. And those pictures continue to roll in as more and more people are discovering Rakk Fuel. Well, obviously, whitetails are fascinating critters, Tom, and the people that hunt them tend to be as well.
Right.
We've got some great guests coming up on the podcast to discuss just the myriad of factors that go into chasing mature bucks and lead to a healthier deer herd.
No, that sounds good, Steve. Thanks for hosting and getting the guests. I think people are going to be pretty excited about what we have coming up, and there's going to be a lot of information on the factors of us chasing these big bucks.
Thanks for joining us on the Rack Factor podcast, presented by Rakk Fuel Premium Deer Nutrition. Listeners of the podcast can enjoy 20% off Rakk Fuel Premium Deer Mineral, Feed, or Food Plot Seed by entering the code FACTOR, that's FACTOR, at checkout. Visit rackfuel.com now for 20% off premium deer nutrition products and fuel your herd. Hey guys, to celebrate the launch of our podcast, we are having a review giveaway. So if you found value in our conversation today, please share and write a review wherever you listen to podcasts. This really helps us get found by others in the hunting community. So write a review, take a screenshot, and email it to steve@rackfuel.com. We will pick one winner to receive a Rakk Fuel prize package as a thank you. Good luck.